must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. My name is Miriam Ogutu, and this is Diaspora Dispatches, where we get to bring you the latest news across the continent. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you're tuned in today, the 12th of April 2021. And we start our news today from South Sudan. And South Sudan President Salva Kiir has dismissed the army chief and reassigned him as the country's ambassador to Belgium. General Johnson Juma Okoth, who was the head of the South Sudanese People's Defense Forces, was replaced with General Santino Ndeng Wall. The president did not give the reason for the move. President Kiir also dismissed General Ruben Malek Riak from his position as Deputy Minister of Defense and replaced him with Lieutenant General Chol Thon Balok. In a mini reshuffle in the intelligence services, President Kiir also replaced General Thomas Duoth Guet as the Director General of the Intelligence, a wing of the National Security Service. And he replaced him with Major General Simon Yen Makwak. The president promoted Akol Kor Kuch, the head of the internal security wing of the NSS, to the rank of the first lieutenant general while maintaining his position. The Deputy Minister of Defense and General Guet have been reassigned as ambassadors to Eritrea and Kuwait, respectively. And then we head on to Chad, where votes are being counted in Chad following the Sunday presidential election, in which incumbent Idris Deby is largely expected to win. The ballot counting started soon after voting closed in the capital, N'Djamena, the Reuters news agency has reported. The ballot, some 7 million Chadians were eligible to vote in the election. Mr. Deby has been in power for 30 years, was facing 6 weaker candidates as the major opposition leaders either boycotted or are barred from running. Provisional results are due on the 25th of April and final results on 15th of May. And then we go to Nigeria, where reports say suspected jihadist fighters have killed 2 Nigerian soldiers in the northeastern part of the country. The soldiers were reportedly gunned down in an ambush while attempting to capture a Boko Haram informant. According to PR Nigeria, a newswire with close links to security agencies, the jihadists attacked Damasak town on Saturday. They also looted humanitarian offices and killed 2 people. The homes of the local police chief and traditional ruler in the town were also banned. The UN humanitarian coordinator in Nigeria, Mr. Edward Kalon, said 3 international aid partners' facilities were directly targeted, set ablaze and sustained damage. He expressed concerns that humanitarian operations in the region will be reduced due to the violent attacks, which will affect the support of over 8,000 internally displaced people and several thousand others in the host communities receiving humanitarian assistance and protection. Damasak is a major humanitarian hub in Borno State in northeast Nigeria. We head over to Eritrea, and the Eritrean authorities have released on bail 36 prisoners who had been in detention because of their faith. Sources told the BBC that 14 of the released prisoners have been in detention for the past 4 years in the Dahilik Island, and 22 others arrested at the end of last month have also been freed on bail. The prisoners are all from Christian, evangelical and Pentecostal denominations. In 2002, Eritrea introduced a new law that forbids all churches except for the Orthodox, Catholic and Lutheran denominations. Sunni Islam is also officially recognized. The Eritrean government has been releasing people imprisoned because of their religious affiliation. We go to Somalia, and Somalia on Sunday received 200,000 doses of Sinopharm COVID-19 vaccine from China. Health Minister Fawzia Abikar received the doses from Chinese Ambassador to Somalia, Qin Jian. The ministry tweeted photos of the ceremony yesterday. Somalia had last month received its first batch of the 300,000 vaccine doses from the COVAX initiative. Somalia has 12,406 confirmed coronavirus cases, including 618 deaths, according to data from the health ministry in the country. Head over to Benin, and Benin's President Patrice Talon lauded the conduct of Sunday's election, saying his country had proven expertise in managing elections. Mr. Talon is widely expected to win the elections, which have been boycotted by the bulk of the opposition. Turnout was low, with several polling stations in the capital reporting low levels of participation, a French public radio RFI has reported. And according to the chairman of Benin's Autonomous National Electoral Commission, polling stations were largely able to open on time. This is despite reports that roads to northern and central Benin had been blocked by opposition supporters. But according to RFI, voting could not take place in Seve, an opposition stronghold in central Benin, after youths block electoral workers from accessing polling stations. And Uganda and Tanzania have signed 3 key agreements aimed at developing Uganda's oil and gas industry during Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan's first trip abroad. The agreement on host government and shareholding for the pipeline, as well as the transportation and tax deals, are a step towards the start of construction of the crude oil pipeline. The two countries entered a partnership to build a 1,443 kilometers oil pipeline to pump Uganda's oil from the Albertine Basin in the west of the country to Tanzania's Indian Ocean port of Tanga. When built, the $3.5 billion pipeline project will be the longest heated oil pipeline in the world. And then we head back to Nigeria, and suspected Islamist extremists attacked the offices. I think I've done that, so I'll just keep that. And then we head over, I apologize, to Libya. And Libyan Prime Minister Abdulhamid Deiba and a delegation of ministers will take their first visit to Turkey today, their first visit to Turkey today since taking office last month. The Turkish presidency had reported they will do so yesterday. Libya's new unity government was sworn in on March 15th from 2 warring administrations that had ruled eastern and western regions, completing a smooth transition of power after a decade of violent chaos. Turkey had backed the Tripoli-based government of national accord against the eastern-based Libyan National Army, which was supported by Russia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, and France. Turkey's presidency said Deiba will hold a 2-day visit upon President Tayyip Erdogan's invitation, adding that he and Erdogan would chair the first meeting of the Turkey-Libya High-Level Strategic Cooperation Council in Ankara. And then we go to Uganda, and the Ugandan Revenue Authority has ordered former presidential candidate Robert Kyagulanyi, aka Bobi Wine, to return his bulletproof car for a fresh tax verification. In a letter dated 8th of April, the taxman demanded that the opposition National Unity Platform leader presents the bulletproof car on Friday. The directive follows a recent ruling of the High Court in Kampala in which a judge dismissed Mr. Kyagulanyi's application that sought to block tax re-evaluation of the vehicle. The taxman notes in the letter that the petition seeking to stop the exercise was dismissed on April 6, 2021. And the African Union's disease control body said on last week that it had dropped plans to secure AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines for its members from the Serum Institute of India, the world's biggest vaccine supplier, amid global shortfalls of the shot. AstraZeneca's $3 shot is by far the cheapest coronavirus vaccine launched so far, and the easiest to store and transport, making it well suited to developing countries. On Wednesday, European and British medicine regulators said they had found possible links between the vaccine and extremely rare cases of brain-blood clots, while emphatically reaffirming its importance in mass vaccination against COVID-19. John Nkengasong, head of the Africa Center for Disease and Control Prevention, said the AU's decision had nothing to do with those findings and reiterated his advice that the benefits of the vaccine outweighed the risks. He said the main reason was to avoid duplicating COVAX efforts by the World Health Organization-backed COVAX facility, which will continue to supply AstraZeneca to Africa. And then we go back to Nigeria, where the movement for the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra has attacked a former Chief of Army Staff and Minister of Interior, Lieutenant General Abdulrahman Dambazau, for comparing the indigenous people of Biafra or do People's Congress and other pro-Biafra agitators with a terrorist group like Boko Haram. Masob described as unguided and reckless the utterances of the former minister, maintaining that such comments are also debasing and unprofessional. It noted that it was Dambazo's kinsmen who he described as Fulani herdsmen that were terrorizing and destroying Nigeria. Dambazo, speaking on Friday in Abuja at the inauguration of Army War College Nigeria, said the proscribed IPOB and OPC shared similarities with the terrorist group Boko Haram. He added that both OPC and IPOB were making attempts to plunge the nation into an ethnic war. But Masob, in a statement on Sunday by its National Director of Information, Edison Samuel, said for Dambazo to compare an internationally accredited terrorist group with the self-determination organizations without condemning the atrocities of his kinsmen, Fulani herdsmen, across the country showed conspiracy and jihadist agenda in the south. And then we go to, I think that's where we end our news this afternoon. James Pitoro, thank you so much. I hope that you had a wonderful weekend. It's interesting there. I will not even get into the conversation about Biafra right now, but thank you so much. Well, President Salva Kiir made some rearrangement in his forces there, in his security forces leadership in South Sudan over the weekend. I don't know if he was able to consult with the rest of the leadership. You know, we've seen lately President Salva Kiir taking matters into his hand and just making unilateral decisions without consulting with his partners there in the peace agreement. Sometimes has not augured very well with the rest of the leadership there in South Sudan. But at the end of the day, he is the president of South Sudan. But you have to understand the unique situation where President Salva Kiir finds himself. So there are certain things, there are certain decisions he cannot make without consulting with the rest of the stakeholders there in South Sudan. So I don't know. I was just reading a news item before I came here, and there's some rights groups there in South Sudan that are saying these new changes that have been made by President Salva Kiir, they cannot solve the insecurity that has permeated South Sudan right now. We know there has been a continuing incidences of especially intercommunal fights there for several reasons. I think we talk about them here every day, so I'll not even get into the details of it. And so there has been a need for the president to arrange that. So I don't know, by him removing others and putting others in certain places, that will improve the security. And so let's just wait and see, because as for last week, I think I was reading a news item from South Sudan as well, where one of the leading media houses there was just outlining in the past 1 week over 70 people have been killed, and that is just a few known cases. The others which are not even reported, people had died from intercommunal fights. The soldiers who were supposed to have passed out are still in the cantonment site. So a lot of them, because of the difficult situations in those cantonment areas they opt to go back to the villages, and when they leave, they're not proper structures, so they just disappear back to the villages. And when they go there, and because they have these arms with them, they end up forming some militia groups in the villages and all that. So there has been, that is just one of the few reasons that has really have contributed to the continued insecurity and the killings that we see there in South Sudan. And we were having this conversation, was it over the weekend, where the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres told the leadership of South Sudan that yes, you're asking for us to lift the arms embargo. Remember, the arms embargo was put in place in 2018 because of the soaring insecurity in South Sudan. And it was just one of the things that was put in place until they're able to implement the revitalized peace agreement of 2018. So the UN Secretary General was presenting his report on his assessment following numerous reports and investigations and all that has been done in South Sudan with the UN body, with different actually bodies. And so Guterres said, you know what, we could think about lifting the arms embargo, but one of the conditions, or one of the key conditions, was for South Sudan to implement the revitalized peace agreement of 2018, and that is a conversation we had here yesterday. And so it's interesting. So I don't know if this will, because South Sudan leadership has been complaining they don't have enough. They don't have enough weapons to address. They're not armed enough. With the people dying every day in South Sudan, killed from, armed, groups. South Sudan government is saying we don't have enough arms over here. And so, these illegally armed people are able to get away with a lot because you're not able to meet the situation with a force required because we are lacking on our part. And so they were asking, and they've been pleading with the UN to lift this embargo so that South Sudan can be able to buy arms, to purchase arms, to arm its security forces there to ensure that security can be taken care of. But what is really interesting is, as much as the official security detail of South Sudan is not armed or cannot buy, nobody can sell them arms embargo. You cannot trade arms with South Sudan. Cannot. But now these other militia groups, they have very sophisticated arms. So that has really went to pose a very serious challenge to the government of South Sudan because they can really not manage the situation there and their security. And you wonder who is supplying the people, this militia, these groups with these arms. Where are they getting them from? Which countries do these arms pass and come to? And it's very interesting because last year, remember, one of the key AU agendas was silencing the gun 2020. So last year, 2020, was supposed to be the year where guns were going to be silenced. All the civil wars we see in the continent are going to be addressed effectively, and a lot of them are, solved. But what we have seen is an escalation of a lot of, civil wars across the continent of Africa, and South Sudan it's just one of those cases that continues to worry the rest of the world. And that partly the reason is because of the proliferation of a lot of small arms and even very sophisticated arms that still continue finding their way into illegal hands there in South Sudan. So that has really posed a challenge there for President Salva Kiir to address effectively the issue to do with security there in South Sudan. I've always, wondered if at all the government of South Sudan is actually serious to address this issue, and the willingness that we've seen is lacking in the top leadership there in South Sudan. So, so he will continue reshuffling, reshuffling ambassadors, reshuffling his cabinet, secretaries, reshuffling everything and security details there. But here's the thing, as it is right now, Parliament is illegally constituted in South Sudan because they're supposed to be going to the election next year. But President Salva Kiir, about 3 weeks ago, came out and said, you know what, I don't think that the country is ready to go to an election in 2022. Remember, this is just one of the key agreements that made part of the revitalized peace agreement. So President Salva Kiir came out to make this announcement without really consulting with the rest of the stakeholders. And we've seen a lot of murmuring and complaint from the rest of the stakeholders. So that also now is posing another challenge in regards to the already very delicate peace, process there in South Sudan. And I don't think that helped in solving anything or in moving the country forward. So I don't want to say that South Sudan continues to be a ticking time bomb, but definitely something needs to be done, and something needs to be done very, very quickly. So if President Salva Kiir is saying next year they're not able to go to the election without because they're not prepared, and we see the slow pace in which they are implementing the agreements in the revitalized peace deal of 2018, you wonder, is this intentional? Is it because they don't have funds? Which, to some extent we agree they don't have funds, but also South Sudan is the second most corrupt country in the world. It is Somalia, then South Sudan, and because of the way it has been and the war that has escalated and has gone for over now 7 years, South Sudan got its independence in 2011, plunged into a war in 2013, and so it has been very unstable. There are no proper structures in place, and so that has really created a fertile ground for corruption, because there's no level of accountability. You know, it's just corruption. I know we have our own problems here in the country, but South Sudan's corruption is just, you know, the indexing there not very good. The second most according to the last indexing of corruption across the world by Transparency. I think Transparency International. The last time I checked. So now it becomes very difficult, because even, when was that we're reading the news, the UN was asking for just an outline for South Sudan to show how they've been spending their money, especially the money they've been making from oil, because they do make a lot of money from the oil, but nobody can account for it. So it's like you keep pouring your money into something that you really can't see, you know, the fruits at the end of it all. I think it becomes a problem, and the rest of the world, I think slowly is becoming very uncomfortable there with the way the leadership and the kind of attitude that is being exhibited by the leadership of South Sudan. So, you know, we continue to express our concern and wish them well, and hopefully, you know, they can get their house in order there, and South Sudan can get to a path of peace and prosperity. So these new changes by President Salva Kiir, of course, has not sat very well with some of the stakeholders there in that peace process. But let's see how that will work out for them. So there you go. And of course, Nigeria, the jihadist Boko Haram continues to cause mayhem there. And James Bitoro, you're saying South Sudan is a failed state. You think? Geez. I mean, yeah. But I think we've said here, and I think a lot of even the people, our viewers from South Sudan, agree with us a lot of times, the leadership there in South Sudan, I don't think they're really keen on finding a solution, because, you know, numerous reports have suggested that they get to really benefit from this chaos in South Sudan. And Surur Iforo, you're saying, I've told you the other day, Miriam. You did? Good afternoon. I don't know where you're watching us from. It's afternoon here, 30 minutes. I mean, 3:30 here, 3:30 p.m. here in Nairobi. So you're saying you told me the other day, these people are just buying time. You're not intentionally implementing the peace deal. Sadly, South Sudan is a failed state. It's quite interesting, because we were just in the month of March. That was last month, and President Salva Kiir came out to make this very careless statement, because he did not bother to factor in the feelings of the other partners or consult with the other partners before making this, you know, reckless announcement that South Sudan will not be able to go to its election next year. That was one of the key requirements of the revitalized peace agreement of 2018. All right. So he just came out of the blue, and we saw Riek Machar, you know, reacting, and he said, no, we have not agreed. We saw other stakeholders saying, no way. I mean, he did not consult with us. And 2023 is still very far off. So by him coming out and announcing that, you know, it's not very good. And I agree with you. I don't know. Is it intentional? Is it because South Sudan lacks fund? Is it because how are you expecting people to vote, and there's still a lot of them in the refugee camps? Should you address the issue of them being resettled fast? It's a lot of things there in South Sudan, and I'm still not very happy that over 1 year later, I remember that agreement they signed last year in February, after having been postponed 3 good times after 2018. 3 good times. They signed the agreement. They were coerced to sign that agreement last year in February. You remember? Was it February 14th? I can't remember the exact date, but it was February last year. Over 1 year later, it just don't make sense to me that we still have South Sudanese in refugee camps, even in South Sudan itself. The government and the president and the leadership of South Sudan has not even attempted to guarantee some level of security, to have these people back, you know, to start rebuilding their lives, or to resettle them back. They're still asking for help to feed people in refugee camps, even inside South Sudan. Forget those ones who were in Kenya and Uganda. Even those ones who were internally displaced in South Sudan itself. You know, so it just baffles me. Yeah, the level of, I agree with you, Surur, you know, they are intentionally they do not want to, implement the peace deal. I think this is intentional. And the rest of the world, as I said there, is really getting tired. It's really getting tired. And so I think they need more pressure, as it has been put to them before. And so I don't know if this new call by UN Secretary General saying if they want the arms embargo to be lifted, then they have to implement. Do you always have to have somebody, threaten you for you to do something as a leader, something that is of great benefit to your people? That is, I think, the disconnect that I've never really wrapped my mind around, the leadership of South Sudan and how they prioritize what they think is important for them and what they think is best for the people of South Sudan. I don't get it, because even after signing that peace last year, the peace deal, in February, you remember what they started fighting over? The boundaries, the number of states. There were 32, and they were not agreeing, so they had to go back to 10, the initial states that they inherited when South Sudan became a country from Sudan. And so that became a tussle, and they dragged it for a long time, and then after that, other issues. And yet, in the order of priority, it doesn't even matter. I think there are things that are quite urgent there and requires to be treated so. And that will be the people of South Sudan who are still languishing in the refugee camps and other things that are important. But I don't think Salva Kiir, Riek Machar, and the rest of them even look at that as a priority. So that is where we are. So let's see, perhaps this changes, and these new reassignments by President Salva Kiir maybe will bring peace. Forget the fact that those soldiers, the unified forces, have not yet been posted. They're still in cantonment sites, and they keep disappearing from those sites because of, as I said, the bad conditions there. So I don't know how he intends to achieve this peace. Even if you keep changing the people at the top sometimes, if you don't take care of the people who are mandated to implement that security down there, then you're doing a zero-sum job there. It will not be successful. So I do understand where this criticism is coming from. You keep changing and rechanging and putting your people in these different places. That has nothing to do with actually seeing change there in South Sudan. But just my thoughts here. I don't know what you think. Joseph Otto, you're saying too much decrease from top in South Sudan without any positive change, Miriam. Do you think this new changes that President Salva Kiir has put in place, this new people he has reshuffled, and a lot of them really he has recycled here? I think I've come across these names several times before. Do you think they will be able to address and respond to some of these issues there, especially matter security, because he reshuffled. He put General Thomas Guet as the Director General of the Intelligence Wing of the National Security Services, and who else? Just in the security section there. So I guess he's trying to tighten the security of the country. I don't know how he's going to do that with all these challenges that are really he has to first address. All right, I think from bottom up approach that will work in this regard, but hey, okay, so there you go. So I think that's it. I don't want to get into this story of Bobby Wine and the Ugandan Revenue Authority ordering him they want to reevaluate to have a fresh tax verification on his bulletproof car. The one he was using during the campaign. And in a letter dated April 8th, the taxman demanded that the opposition National Unity platform leader presents the bulletproof car on Friday. Uganda just never stops. Like, you've harassed that young man enough now. Just give him a break. President Museveni is waiting to be sworn in for his second term next month. So I think the intimidation will continue until he's able to be sworn in for his 6th term, right? Yeah, I think after that, they will just leave him alone. So he's expected to present that car and for re-verification. I don't even know what that means. but I don't know if he'll be allowed to pay more tax. I don't know what he's. I don't know. It's Uganda for you, so I can't even get into the details of it. Of course, several elections took place over the weekend. That in Benin, the other one in Djibouti, where President Guelleh is expected to win, apparently from reports. I don't know how I don't have that report here with me, the news. But he's expected to win. Benin also went to election, and is it in Benin or is it in Djibouti? I was listening to some news from Al Jazeera while I was preparing these items coming here. They were saying the president won with 90-something% of the votes. Like, what? Why was there even a need for anybody to go vote? Just stamp that, Guelleh, I think it was in Djibouti, has won, because a lot of formidable opposition figures, I think, were barred from running, had fled the country or something like that. So Mr. Guelleh essentially was just running against himself. I think it was in Djibouti, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, that is democracy the African way. Quite unfortunate. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Diaspora Dispatches. Sidonio Jivanda saying it's like a father and a son conflict. Oh, that one of Museveni and Bobby Wine. It's terrible. I think Museveni should just be the father that he is. I don't know. They should just leave him alone already. It's crazy. And what else can you do? Just wait to be inaugurated again for your 6th term in May, and that's it. What is the problem? Okay, all right. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again here tomorrow, God willing. My name is Miriam Ugotu. Bye-bye for now.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.